I don't watch a lot of TV, and I definitely don't watch anything intended for anyone older than 7. So I can't relate with anyone on that front that comes into comment sections saying they started watching Family Guy when they were 6. I don't think that's as big of a flex as you think it is. However, this little rule of mine has somewhat of an exception, and this exception is Bob's Burgers. I've mentioned it maybe once or twice before, but today I actually wanted to take the time to talk about it. Bob's Burgers is an animated sitcom that follows the daily life of Bob, a burger restaurant owner, a husband to his wife Linda, who also works alongside him in the restaurant, and a father to his 3 children, Tina, the oldest, Jean, the middle child, and Louise, the youngest, who all also help their parents with the restaurant. The family lives in an apartment above their restaurant, which is located in a seaside town, and gets into the normal type of mischief you'd expect in a sitcom. And it is also sometimes highlighted that the Belcher family isn't particularly raking in too much money. Bob's Burgers aired in 2011 and has since had 13 seasons and a theatrical film, with the 14th and 15th season confirmed in 2023. I say with bated breath because we know that things can get confirmed and then deconfirmed. Thankfully, since almost nothing in this show has any continuity, I don't have to go through what happens in every season. Bob's Burgers' first season is oftentimes referred to as its weakest season, as a season that happened before the show came into its own. Even though I do think this season is the funniest and has the most charming animation and art style of the series, I will admit that it does come across as if it is trying to more closely replicate the humor of its competitors on the Fox channel. The show is particularly praised for its creative and genuinely relatable and funny characters, as well as the positivity exhibited between the family members, while still remaining entertaining to those seeking a good laugh. Bob's Burgers is also chock full of equally lovable and sometimes love-to-hateable characters that help both support and highlight the main cast and the silly situations they get into. The second season marks a shift in the tone of the humor of the show, being slightly less edgy while still maintaining that maybe kids shouldn't watch this kind of delivery and innuendo, I guess. From here on, the series uses this rough model of writing, with episodes being rated pretty much on a per-case basis, as not all episodes have that kind of stuff to begin with. Bob's Burgers has a general rating between TV 14 and PG, again on a per-episode rating, at least from what I've observed while actually watching it. Not sure if that's just the network's indecisiveness on what rating is the correct one, or if it's intentional. Over time, the art style also changes, from being this kind of lumpy, wonky style similar to maybe Beavis and Butthead but more rounded out and less grotesque looking, similar to the other competitors on Fox. A good flat comparison is Sanjay and Craig, which actually was influenced by the art and writing of Bob's Burgers in a way, given that the same guy did the character designs for both. The family itself comes across as looking all relatively similar, given that they're a family, of course, all sharing the same black hair and slightly tanned skin. Bob is usually depicted in his work clothes, a white t-shirt and gray sweats, with a white apron on. A point of many of the jokes in the show is that Bob is sort of balding, and has kind of a messy comb-over style as well as a mustache that is also often a source for many jokes. The general opinion in the show is that he and his kids kind of mock his appearance, but the internet seems to like him quite a bit. Linda wears a red long sleeve, jeans, and red glasses, and when she's at the restaurant, she usually has a shorter apron compared to Bob. Her hair is a bit long, kind of a puffy style that's reminiscent of the big hair of women in New Jersey, as her accent and demeanor reflect such as well. Tina wears a light blue t-shirt, a blue skirt, and thick black glasses. A main point about her character that is sometimes brought up to illustrate a change in her taste for the episode, or rather a certain status quo she's trying to fit into, is the yellow barrette in her hair, which is somewhat of a bob cut. Gene wears a yellow t-shirt and blue jean shorts. His hair is kind of like a bowl cut kind of thing, just not as sharp of an edge and is more messy and soft. Although it is revealed in one episode that he actually has a braid he was growing out before he subsequently cuts it off. Louise is the only family member whose hair does not show, as she is always shown wearing a pink hat with bunny ears and, other than this, a light green dress. Recurring side characters include Teddy, a handyman who is Bob's close friend and daily patron to the restaurant, who honestly becomes a main character later on. Mort, a mortician that operates out of the building on the left of the restaurant. The family's landlord, Mr. Fishoder. Jimmy Pesto, a rival restaurant owner from across the street. His son Jimmy Jr., who Tina is often observed to have a crush on. The health inspectors Hugo and Ron. Linda's sister Gail, her friend Gretchen. Tina's frenemies Tammy and Jocelyn. Louise's friend Rudy, who is often called regular-sized Rudy to distinguish him from another Rudy at the school. The school's guidance counselor, Mr. Frond. and sometimes the members of the fictional in-universe band Boys for Now, who are always hilarious, and I will definitely dedicate a portion of this to them later. Bob himself is probably one of the most realistic dads on TV, aside from Bandit from Bluey. He's a middle-aged man who genuinely just wants his restaurant to work out for the sake of his own dreams, for the sake of his family, and to carry on the expectation placed upon him by his most times dismissive father. It's sometimes even mentioned that Bob had a particularly unhappy childhood, which makes it even more satisfying to see him making a point to treat his kids the way he does, involving them in working in the restaurant, while also respecting their various hobbies and interests, getting involved himself when the situation allows it. He's the rock of the family and offers his support and level-headed or sometimes pessimistic reasoning, at most times anyway, as he's also known to stray from this and allow himself to give into some crazier situations. Most notably, he's very particular about how Thanksgiving goes every year, as he's the chef and all. When compared to the likes of Homer Simpson and Peter Griffin, Bob doesn't fit into that, "oh my god, I genuinely hate my family, woe is me that I am married to this woman and the provider for these children" trope. Rather, a kind of unique, "oh my god, I hate the situation that this family is and what we get into, but I love them and I would do anything for their happiness" kind of thing. That and a very distinct lack of violent humor between the patriarch and the rest of the family, which is refreshing to see, especially in a cartoon aimed towards adults. His wife Linda is in most ways the foil to him, the more laid-back and hopeful match to his mainly realistic and sometimes brooding demeanor about life. Linda loves the life that she has with her husband, kids, and friends, and makes the most of it even given the family's less than ideal money situation and daily stressors with the restaurant and kids. She's incredibly supportive of her kids and her husband and shows herself that equal amount of support in the things she pursues too, and has a nice detachment from the family in these cases, showing just how independent she can be while also being a great mom and wife. She's such a fun character, she breathes so much life and joy into every scene she's in. She's a silly mom, a silly character, and I love her. I relate to her a lot. As I said in my Q&A, I am definitely Lindakin. She's more often the parent that gets into her own little adventures, and when she does, they're always so entertaining, it's great. Tina, the oldest daughter of the family, is somewhat of a quiet kid. Her main trait is that she has a rough time with socializing with people, although she does have friends that seem to get along with her better than what she realizes. She pushes herself to fit in, but her anxious demeanor gets in the way of almost everything she tries, especially new things. However, she's also incredibly creative, and in a bit of a parody of teenage girls on the internet, she's a big fan of boys in general and writes somewhat NSFW fanfiction of practically every piece of media she consumes. She doesn't hold back in terms of her self-expression, but does fall short of this if it becomes a subject of either her friends or siblings' bullying. As the oldest, she is a very responsible and caring sibling and helps her family with anything she can, even if it puts her in an uncomfortable situation, which she can sometimes muster up the courage to face at times like that. Gene is the sillier and more fun sibling, more like his mom in this way, who he has a close relationship with. He loves music and often carries around some kind of keyboard or noisemaker or whatever he can get his hands on to express this. He likes to joke around and make people smile. He generally is the one that worries the most about any conflicts in the family being solved and uses his humor to do so if it's possible. He has the biggest dreams of his siblings, wanting to end up in some kind of music career, and is usually paired up with Louise in most plots pertaining to the younger siblings and side characters. Louise is the troublemaker, a kid who likes to get into that creative type of mischief. She never means to actually hurt anyone or anything, but she likes to get what's just, or what she thinks either she or her friends are deserving of. This also extends to her family, who she is incredibly protective of, and will do anything she needs along those lines to benefit or help them. She mainly comes up with whatever scheming the three kids will get into in the episodes where they go on these little missions or adventures, guided by Louise's curious mind and knowledge for how things do and do not work. She has interests that are a little bit different to the other kids, such as a love for violent movies and a fighting trading card game called Burobu, but she also likes somewhat girly things like Tina, although she'd never fully admit it. The family has this incredible balance of highs and lows, with everyone having their own strengths and weaknesses and things they bring to the table to help lift the family up when they're down. None of the main cast is one note in any way, and the writing explores a lot of different combinations between the kids and the parents. And they all get along great, and even when they do happen to butt heads, it's usually in regard to some separate thing to be faced together, regardless of who or what might have caused it. The characters are constantly built upon and don't particularly fall into any tropes for too long at a time, like nobody in the family has any specific role for the entirety of the show, and I think that's nice. Just for example, compared to The Simpsons, where like Bart always gets into trouble, and Lisa is the more reasonable one, and they help each other out, and that's always how it happens. Maybe not so much now, I don't watch The Simpsons, but maybe earlier on in the series. Another notable part of the show is that almost every episode either includes or ends with an original song. These little silly bangers either made up by the kids, Linda, who is prone to singing almost everything she says, or by a fictional band or other side character in that episode. It's even had a couple of official album releases of these songs. Bob's Burgers has seen a massive success from its second season onward, and in my knowledge hasn't had a miss yet. It's been nominated for the Emmy Award for Outstanding Animated Program 11 times in a row between 2012 and 2022, and has won 2 of those Emmys. The movie did see a little bit of trouble, being one that got caught up in the havoc of the pandemic after being moved from its 2020 release year to 2021, and then further delayed until 2022 due to scheduling problems. The release of the movie was fairly quiet because of this, and I think some of the reservations came from the fact that people were calling it a musical, but I wouldn't call it that because there were only 4 songs, and Bob's Burgers usually has some kind of silly song, so it should have been expected. So I know that other people have talked about Bob's Burgers in more depth, and probably with more efficiency than what I'm talking about it here, but I wanted to just cover a few points about it and certain episodes that I really like. At some point, I would actually really like to rank all of the episodes, but that's just a big job to do on so short of a notice. And I know it's gonna end up being this big long video. I still need to make the actual tier listing with the pictures and the episode names and stuff, and yeah. I just wanted to touch on some of the other special things about the show that make it what it is, stuff like that. A staple of Bob's Burgers is what's called the Anthology episodes, where a certain issue will arise either regarding a specific character or even the whole family. This problem or question will either then be solved or responded to by 3 stories, usually made up by the kids and at times the parents. Each story usually reflects the personality and way of thinking that is unique to the character telling it. Begun by the first Anthology episode, The Frond Files, in Season 4, the show has had one of these types of episodes in every season since. For an example of how this works, my favorite Anthology episode, the Season 6 episode, Sliding Bobs, begins with Linda mentioning how Bob's mustache was one of the things that she liked so much about him that led her to fall in love with him. The kids then begin to wonder what might have been if Bob didn't have his mustache, and they each take turns telling a hypothetical story about what could have happened instead. Gene's version involves Bob obtaining some kind of RoboCop-like metal mustache, making him a crime fighter. Louise's version has it so Linda refuses to date Bob unless he can grow an impressive mustache, and in an effort to do so tries some kind of magical hair growth supplement that causes him to grow hair all over. Aunt Tina's version, the most scarily realistic one, has it so Bob's lack of a mustache causes Linda to never fall in love with him, rather ending up marrying Hugo, as she would have in real life if she had never actually met Bob. Another special thing about Bob's Burgers is the fact that Bob has a burger of the day, a special burger he crafts for each day that always has some kind of a pun for a name, examples of which are the Totally Radish burger, the If Looks Could Kale burger, and the What's the Worcestershire That Could Happen burger. Most times these burgers will reference titles or phrases from pop culture, which is also replicated for the names on the building to the right of the restaurant, and the Exterminator band both featured in the intro, with both names being different in pretty much each one. If you were ever curious to try one of Bob's Burgers of the day, there's actually a cookbook that has recipes for 75 of them. It's about $15 on Amazon, and I would do anything for one because I trust Bob's craftsmanship as well as any real culinary experts. Bob's Burgers has also had a few standout special episodes, ones that don't become a normal story structure like the Anthology episodes. In Season 4, Bob's Burgers got the first of its current 2 two-part episodes. World War II, The Wharfening, or How Bob Saves/Destroys the Town. In this episode, Mr. Fischoder's brother, Felix, convinces Bob that it would be beneficial to get Mr. Fischoder to sell his Wonder Wharf amusement park in order to build better revenue-generating condos where it will have once sat, promising Bob that he'll have a prime spot for a restaurant close to these condominiums and thus see a spike in his earnings. Bob eventually does just this, with the kids of course against the idea of the Wonder Wharf being closed. The end of the episode has somewhat of a cliffhanger that leads into the second episode, the last of the season, where things are eventually resolved. The second two-parter in the series is the first and second episodes of Season 12, Some Like It Bought, where Tina is the subject of some bullying over her style of dressing and expressing herself, after having gathered the confidence to wear a shirt she really likes, which leads her into questioning if it's maybe better not to try to be yourself at all, as that's clearly what is more acceptable to society, a story that's expressed through a slight parodying of Blade Runner. In Season 8, the first episode, Brunch Squatch, is a special episode where the character design and animation was actually put together by fans, featuring 62 different artists' work and the characters, background, and opening sequence of the episode. The show had previously run a contest to determine which fans would be selected for the episode, and since it was dedicated to the fans, it contains many nods to past episodes. The plot has the family serving brunch to compete with Jimmy Pesto, who had been making extra money doing the same. Bob's Burgers has also seen high praises for its holiday episodes, which they put out for Valentine's Day, Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. The handling of these episodes never comes across as overly invested in whatever holiday the episode takes place on, and rather revolves around some kind of issue only rooted in it being that holiday. For example, the Thanksgiving episodes have to do with either Bob's stress to make a good meal, or even get it made at all, and sometimes employ other plots. The Halloween episodes either just have some spooky element to them, or actually feature the kids going out and dressing up. And the Christmas episodes are most times the most heartfelt ones, and have an overall message of closeness and humanity in them, making them the more emotional ones depending on what plot is followed with each one. Last but not least, as I said, I wanted to dedicate a portion of the video to Boys for Now, the show's fictional pop boy band I mentioned earlier. The band consists of 4 members, Griffith, Matt, Alan, and the face of the band, Boo Boo. The band parodies boy bands in general, but has references to specific ones every now and then, including a plot in a Boys for Now dedicated episode where Boo Boo leaves the band and pursues a solo career, a mirror of Zayn having left One Direction a year prior to this episode's airing. Another slight reference being their naming, presumably after the band Boyz II Men. The character Matt is supposed to be this teenager in the band, but as a reference to teen heartthrobs often being much older themselves, Matt is actually the oldest, claiming to be 17, although his appearance and questionable references to having a kid suggest that he's older than that. Another member, Alan, is also subject to a little joke about boy bands. In a line where Linda notices that Alan looks different than what he did last time she saw him, she accuses the band, quote, switched Alans, to which Tina says is wrong, impossible even. However, it can be observed in different episodes where the band appears that Alan is actually 2 people, 2 different character designs like Linda said. This is a joke about how a lot of boy banders have the same kind of look and can be easily replaced if need be, kinda like the boy band episode of Gravity Falls where they're all clones. So that's it. Let me know if you've ever seen any of Bob's Burgers, and let me know what you think of it if you did. I didn't talk too much about the movie because I didn't want to spoil anything, so maybe in the future if I do a video about cartoons that got movies, I'll find a way to include it and be able to talk about it to the level I want to without spoiling anything. As always, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you in the next one.